It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Friday, July 19th. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by Wyoming Senior Olympics, reminding you that this year's Summer Olympics start July 31st in Cheyenne, and volunteers are needed. Become a volunteer today at wyomingseniorolympics.org.
This is exactly what you were doing today on the call. Stonewalling.
U.S. Senator John Barrasso chased down and confronted the head of the Secret Service during the Republican National Convention on Wednesday, demanding answers to security breakdowns that allowed an assassination attempt on former President Trump's life during a political rally last weekend. Politics reporter Leah Wolfson reports that Wyoming's senior senator was uncharacteristically direct with Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle.
Wyoming Senator John Barrasso is not known for being the most temperamental person in Congress by any stretch of the imagination. He's usually very friendly, but this was not the John Barrasso that we saw on Wednesday night at the Republican National Convention. Him and Marsha Blackburn, the Republican from Tennessee, really kind of cornered the head of the Secret Service, Cheadle, and Barrasso basically started yelling point blank at her as she started to walk away from the senators and wouldn't really address their concerns directly.
The Department of Homeland Security has opened a second investigation into the U.S. Secret Service for its handling of the attempted assassination. A large male grizzly bear that's been smashing house windows, breaking into vehicles, and raising hell in the tiny Yellowstone gateway town of Gardner, Montana, may have been killed by wildlife agents on Thursday. Although the bear's fate remained uncertain that afternoon, the consensus among locals who spoke with Outdoors reporter Mark Hines was that its behavior escalated to an unsafe point where it likely had to be put down.
I talked to a lady that the bear actually, she was away from her home and got a text message from her neighbor. Hey, the bear's trying to break into your house. You better come home. So the lady races home and she finds the bear hanging halfway in one of her windows. And so what she does is she drives her car at it. That's how she scared the bear away. She drove her car. She didn't know what else to do, so she drove her car at it, and that scared the bear. Anyway, there's been stuff like this happening left and right with this particular bear.
The Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks was not able to confirm the bear's death as of press time, but one local with knowledge of the situation told Hines that the bear was put down Thursday morning. Nuclear technology innovator BWX Technologies agreed to work with Wyoming Energy Authority to evaluate requirements on where to build a potential nuclear fuel factory in Wyoming. Energy reporter Pat Mayo reports that hundreds of millions of dollars could be needed to build the kind of nuclear fuel fabrication factory necessary to power the commercial micronuclear reactors being designed by BWX Technologies and others.
They're going to look at different sites. What makes sense? They'll look at engineering costs, they'll look at plant costs to build this thing. It's a big deal in the sense that we have this mining rush going on in the uranium industry. A new factory could run hundreds of millions of dollars in investment in the state of Wyoming.
Mayo spoke to some of the state's nuclear insiders who've been discussing for months whether the state has a shot at getting involved in a new business line in the U.S. that could provide a potential source of fuel to compete alongside coal. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
In southwest Wyoming, wide open space is waiting. This is how we explore it. In Rock Springs and Green River, Wyoming. Plan your adventure at explorewy.com.
As voices and momentum urging President Joe Biden to end his re-election campaign grow, Wyoming Democrats say they understand the desire of many voters for a younger candidate, but they worry about the party's chances of making a candidate switch so close to the election. Politics reporter Leah Wolfson spoke to several members of the state Democratic Party whose opinions were mixed.
Wyoming Democratic Party Chairman Joe Barbuto is fully behind Biden and said he totally supports him staying in the race. He sees no reason to walk away from them now. Cheyenne resident Marcy Kindred feels pretty much the opposite. She believes the party as a whole has abandoned rural America, and she thinks that the Wyoming Democratic Party could really take a stand by distancing itself from the president at this time.
An AP poll released on Wednesday showed that nearly 2/3 of Democrats want Biden to withdraw from the race. Stay 25 yards away from bison in Yellowstone National Park. That's the rule that the Park Service posts everywhere and so many tourists ignore. But what happens when a bison decides to close the distance and get up close and personal? That's what happened in the park earlier this month, according to Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi.
A bison had just lost a rut, and was angry and aggressive and charging. And it just decided to single out a family that was following the rules and enjoying their time in Yellowstone. And it tried charging them. And they acted in the best way they could. They tried to put a buffer between themselves and the bison. So they weren't being idiots in this case. They acted as best they could in that moment. And that's just the reality of Yellowstone National Park. It's a wild environment, and wild things can happen. And sometimes the animals can be the instigators.
The video was posted on the Yellowstone National Park Invasion of the Idiots Facebook page, but the page's owner, Jen Mignard, defended the afflicted family. She said they were lucky in a bad situation that was out of their control. And the average American driver drives about 14,000 miles every year. That's a lot of vehicle mileage, adding up to about 3.2 trillion miles a year. But as Cowboy State Daily contributor Aaron Turpin discovered, the average Wyoming driver drives almost twice that.
By the Federal Highway Administration's numbers, people in Wyoming drive twice as much as the national average. It doesn't surprise me terribly, but I was surprised also to see what other states were not on that list. None of our neighbors are on that list. They're all pretty much average. So it's just Wyoming, and then the next best one is a southern state, not even related to us.
The next closest state to Wyoming for most miles driven per driver is Mississippi at almost 20,000 per year. Americans collectively drive more miles than has been covered in all of NASA's space exploration to date, even including Voyager. And that's today's news. For a deeper dive into the people and issues that affect Wyoming, check out The Roundup, video conversations with the most interesting people in the Cowboy State. A new episode drops tomorrow when I have a conversation with explorer, National Geographic correspondent, and keynote speaker Mark Jenkins. You can find the link on our website, on our YouTube channel, and wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you'll find it in our free daily newsletter. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.